Hi again. Let's continue working on phaser, and so far we've got our splash screen showing up, but what we want to do is we want to click on this splash screen to take us to the game, right? So let's add that. I'm going to go to Atom here, and I'm going to switch to the preload scene, and so far in here we're loading up. We're giving our scene the name preload. This is a key so we can identify it. And then we're preloading this logo image here, right? And then we're creating an instance of the logo image on create, right? So we see the image in the preload scene, right? So what I'd like to do here is I'd like to add a mouse click. So just anywhere on the screen, you just click the mouse, and then that's going to take us to the next scene. So this is a little weird, and I'll show you like how I figured this out too. I had to go look up their documentation and find some examples, and there's a couple ways to look stuff up, so I'll show you another way to look at some example code that they have. So I'm going to go to input. So input is like, recognizes keys, and the pointer like the mouse and the mouse button, right? So I'm going to say import dot on. Okay, so this is kind of like add event listener, right? And what we want to listen for is what they call a pointer down event. So that means you press the mouse button down, right? And what we'll do is we'll include a function here to handle that, okay? And actually this ES6 function, if you don't have another line, if there's only a single line, you don't have to have the parenthesis or the curly brackets, right? So I'll leave that off. And what I want to do here is I want to say this dot scene lowercase, okay, dot what is it, start, I think is what it is, right? Let me think. Yeah, okay, so it's this dot start. I wrote it down over here so I'd remember, because it's all kind of new to me, right? Anyway, so there we go. So we want to do the game. So what you do here is you include the key of the scene that you want to show. So I'm going to say this dot start, or this dot scene dot start, and then we start the game, right? And you remember, if I go back to game scene, I gave this the key of game, right? So I want to use this key value here, right? And I'm going to use it here like this. So let's save that and give it a try. And oh, here we are. And then I'll click, and then there we're starting the game, right? And we could also add one of these at the game over. So if I collect all the stars and die because I get hit by a bomb. Oops, let me see if I can. When you're trying to get killed, oh wait, there we go. Oh no. Oh, game over, right? And we could go to another scene here if we wanted, right? So anyway, so how did I figure that out? Well, the documentation is pretty good. There's a lot to go through here. Phaser's got a lot of features, right? So this is like a very complex library, and a lot of complex libraries you're going to learn are going to have a lot of documentation like this. Some will be better than others. The documentation here isn't great, but it's not that bad. And it's actually, you can search it, it's kind of organized, right? So that's kind of nice. I just wish the descriptions here were written a little more clearly. Like, I find this to be a little confusing to read. So the other thing that they provide, and I kind of like this a lot, is kind of a lab or an area where they have a bunch of example code. So I'm going to look that up right now. I'm going to look for Phaser 3, and then I looked for labs, right? I saw docs, and then I saw labs under here, so I'm going to look at labs. And this says Phaser 3 examples, right? So if I click on this, they have all these little folders. So this is actions and animation and audio and bugs. And somebody said like two things. This is the classic programmer joke, right? Is like there's two things hard about programming, and one of them is cache invalidation, and the other is naming things, right? So here we're running up against that because we're looking at these names and we're asking ourselves, what do these mean? So animation probably means we animate stuff, and audio probably means it makes sound. Bugs, this could be bugs. I'm not sure what that is, right? Could be like example bugs, could be like how to log bugs, or I'm not quite sure what that does, right? Actions also are kind of vague, like what do they do? We have to figure out Phaser's like vocabulary, right? So if we can figure out the vocabulary of the software, then we can start reading the function names and the class names, and they'll start making more sense, right? But anyway, if we scroll through this, you'll see game objects are here. And so we already know like text is a game object, image is a game object, right? So we can look at that. Games, maybe they got some example games in there, or maybe that's the game object, not sure. But then they've got input here. And so if you click on this, you can see camera, cursors, dragging, game object, gamepad. And if you click on one of these, it'll show you some example code. So I think I looked at this one right here, custom cursor, cute cursor. Wait, I don't want, actually that's not the one I looked at. I was looking at, or actually maybe it was this one. Let me see here. And it kind of loads, and it's got some sample code here. Actually, it wasn't this one, but we could look at this anyway. You know, and if you click, like what I did, I kind of went through that quick, but it shows you like a sample phaser, you know, project here, and then there's some buttons at the bottom to go through this. If you click the edit button, it'll take you to an area. Sometimes this takes a minute to load, but it'll load the sample code and run it here, and then it'll show you the code that's running on this side. So you can, so it's still loading up over on this side, but you can see here's some code here. And they'll write this in a few different ways, which is a little confusing, but you know, as you learn, you'll be able to take it apart and pull out the things that you need. So they've got sprite.on, pointer over, right? And then they're setting the tint and they're doing something, right? Anyway, I was digging through this and I found where they had like mouse down and stuff like that. So I'm in the wrong one right now. I don't want the custom cursor. I want, let me go back here. Oh, I guess this is kind of weird navigation too. I can't use the back button, but you can use this button here to go back, right? Pointer, maybe it was under pointer. It was either here or maybe it was under mouse. Let's go under pointer, right? Drag rectangle, mouse event. I think maybe it was this one. Oh, that's kind of interesting. So you can draw something there, or leave a trail of objects. You know, oh yeah, it was kind of like this, right? So this says, it's a little hard to read here, but it says like this.input.on pointer move, and I had to look up the events, right? For input on, right? So, you know, I found this and I realized I could do some things with the pointer. You know, it took a type and then you put a function in here, and I figured that was a callback or a handler for this event, right? It's very similar to add event listener. Notice there's a third parameter. So really, like this function begins here. This is one parameter, comma, there's another parameter, and this function, the curly brace starts there and it ends right here. So this comma is the third parameter. So if we were to type this kind of in short form here, it might look like this, where we have like event and then a function. I'm going to make that an ES6 function so it's a lot shorter. And then there's another comma there, and there's another parameter called this. And I remember looking this up, and this right here sets the context for the function that you put here, right? So that's what the third parameter is, right? But anyway, so I looked that up, and then I also looked up the input thing over here. So I went to scene and then .input, and then I looked up input on, right? And I found pointer down, callback, and context, right? So between those two things, I was able to figure out like what to do to click and go to the next scene, right? And then I saw some other pretty good examples in here too. Let me go back there. You got to use the arrow, right? And what was the one? It was like, you know what it was? It was in scenes, and then it was changing scenes with a transition. I think it was one of these right here, and it allows you to make a transition between scenes that are animated, right? So you can make an animated transition. So my challenge to you is to use, actually this one's not animated, let me get a better one. Changing scene, maybe it was this one. No, that's just changing scenes. Actually, well, we can look at the code there, right? So yeah, so this is like input once. That's actually interesting. The other one was on, and then scene.start. So I think I grabbed the code from this. I don't remember seeing input once, but I remember seeing one in here that had an animated transition between scenes. So maybe you could dig around in here and find it again. Yeah, I don't remember where that was. It was in here somewhere. Anyway, so that's just some more information for you. You know, get a lot of use out of these examples. The sample code is really useful, and then you can kind of cross-reference it against the documentation here, and that'll help you figure out, you know, any phaser features that you're interested in exploring. Okay? So anyway, thanks for watching.